Hey everybody, we are joined once again by Andy Talaga, and we're here to do an introduction to the Versus system, which is a Marvel-themed CCG that Andy is probably one of the biggest fans of in the world. So we thought we'd do kind of an introduction of what the cards look like, a little bit of the history of the game. But I thought I'd start with, why is it called Versus system?
I actually have no idea. I guess you're versing your opponent on that versus system.
It's called that because it's written on the back of the card, right? That's why it's called Versus system.
Exactly. Maybe at some point there was an idea that they'd bring in like all these other universes, and it's all just the different comic book universes versing each other. I don't know. I can't really speak to it that well, but this game's awesome. This game is super awesome. So a little bit of background. I know at some point you and I had recorded a video about why 2004 was such an interesting year. This game came out in 2004. This is like the linchpin? Yeah, that's the word. Linchpin of like the whole year of 2004, and like the sets of types of card games that came out, like WoW, TCG, and the Spoils, all kind of borrow from the design of Versus system. This like ushered in like a new era of card gaming. It's a really important game. It kind of is the predecessor to it was like Overpower, which was from like a completely different company, and like the game isn't like exactly like that one. You were building a team and they had different powers. This one you're still kind of building a team, but it's a lot more straightforward in terms of like gameplay. It's deceptively easy, similar to Magic, right? Where like you could have somebody explain this game to you in 5 minutes and you're like, okay, I got it. And you didn't even scratch the surface of like how insanely complex this game can get. So if you're looking for trying to like play a game where you have to know like complex systems theory, this is the game for you. If you're not looking for that, maybe like Overpower if you're really into like Marvel DC stuff, or one of the like FFG games. But this game's awesome. So Versus system is Marvel and DC. It's produced by Upper Deck, and Upper Deck has the rights to Marvel like trading cards, like Marvel Masterpieces and Marvel Universe type stuff. And they, I guess, were approached by Marvel about making a game. And what they did is they actually reached out to a number of professional Magic players to look at designing and developing the game. Now, this again is in about 2003, 2004. The Magic rules manager at the time, Jeff Danaeus, was brought on to basically write the rules. He was the head honcho over all of the rules of Magic. And they basically sat down and they were like, look, again, 2003, 2004 era, Magic was only 10 years old. But since day one of Magic, everybody has been trying to fix Magic because Magic has an inherent problem with mana system. And so these like professional Magic players sat down and are like, how do we actually fix Magic? Let's make a game that fixes all the stuff we hate about Magic, and then we're going to skin it on the Marvel and DC IPs. And we're going to try one of the things at that time that you have to remember about Magic is that was the time of play the game, see the world marketing, which was the whole existence of Magic basically developed out of the Pro Tour. And like the Pro Tour players went on, like Aaron Forsythe and Randy Buehler and stuff, into Wizards corporate. And then they brought that Pro Tour player lifestyle to them of traveling the world and playing at really high competitive gaming, which, spoiler alert, is not how Magic should have been. They figured that out when Commander took off, and now Magic is basically just like all Commander all the time, all casual kitchen table, beer and pretzels, and not like high level competitive play. And the sets that were designed for Magic at the time were just very complex. So these guys took that idea and were like, let's make versus system. And we're not going to really make it like a go to your local game store and play a Friday Night Magic. Like this is a Grand Prix Pro Tour, huge marquee type events. We're going to be offering like more money than Wizards offered for OP, and just like they then structured it where like Wizards, part of what Wizards program was is if you were in a pro players club, which was introduced right around the same time, they would fly you to all their pro tour events, and then you'd get appearance fees at Grand Prix, which I think they still do a little bit of. So Versus System decided that they were going to, like, if the Magic Pro Tour is in Los Angeles, we're going to put our Pro Tour the weekend after in San Diego. And then Wizards will foot the bill for getting all the players out to go play our game. So this basically became free money for professional Magic players. It was fantastic. And so they designed a game that professional Magic players wanted to play at high level, high stakes. And that's where you get Versus System. So Versus System has 4 card types. There's characters, plot twists, locations, and equipment. Equipment's pretty terrible. Most people don't play equipment. There's some equipment that's really broken. I'm not going to lie. But most equipment's pretty terrible. So really most decks are characters, plot twists, and locations.
Do you have some cards you can show off, Andy, just to show kind of what the cards look like here?
Sure. So there's a couple different frames, and I'll go over that. But so this is a Harley Quinn card. So I get some glare. Let's see if I can unglare this as best as I can. Not really. Foils in this game are super expensive. This is probably one of the most expensive games you can possibly find. This is more expensive than Star Wars CCG by far. Probably more expensive than Lord of the Rings by far. This is probably the most expensive game out there. So you have, this is a DC card, right? Harley Quinn. So you got the DC icon. Over here, you got the casting cost, deploy cost, twilight cost, whatever you want to, whatever your game is, analogy, this is how much it costs to put this card into play. I'm doing the Southpaw here. These are the team affiliations. So Harley Quinn is part of Arkham Inmates, Joker, Bane, Mr. Freeze, etc. Over here you have power and toughness. In yellow, not that you can really see it, I'll try. Yellow is power, gray is toughness. So she's a 1/1 for 1. And she has game text here. Sorry, like I said, southpawing this one here in the middle. So this one says, whenever Harley Quinn is discarded, you may remove her from the game. If you do, target character gets -2 defense this turn. So if you've ever played Magic, a lot of the way that cards are phrased will make sense without really knowing a ton about the game. So that's like a character. And there's different types of characters. You get everything from, Dr. Doom. This is probably one of the best cards in the game. To you'll have, everybody's favorite Spider-Man, et cetera, Batman. Every character that's like ever existed in comic book history is in Versus System.
Kind of an amazing feat, just thinking like how difficult the crossover rights are now. Like you can't even get a Spider-Man movie, right, without like Sony's blessing.
Yeah, that is actually part of the problem of why Versus System died. Is DC didn't want to participate anymore. Really, there was a breakdown in like renegotiating the contract, the licensing contract with DC. So there's like way more Marvel sets that were released because DC didn't want to play ball. So then like it kind of like there wasn't like parity between them, and you can mix and match between DC and Marvel in any one deck. Like this deck that I was just showing here is like a mixture of DC and Marvel. You got like, and it's like the other part of the game that was really difficult for people to grasp is And it doesn't really matter if you're looking at it from the lens of like professional Magic playing, professional CCG playing, like you just want to play a good strategic game, so you don't really care like if there's lore and pictures and flavor text, like that's all irrelevant. It's just about stats and abilities. So like some of the best cards in the game are like Detective Chimp, Dr. Light,
Right.
Boris. And it's like, so if you're just like a casual comic book player, like fan, and you go to your comic book store and you're like, oh, Versus is, whoa, what's this? I used to play Magic back in the day. Like, let me pick up some things. And like you were like, I want to sit down and play my Wolverine deck, or like I want to have like Punisher and Hulk team up in this. Like, you can't do that in the original version of the game. And like, so it didn't ring with comic book fans, which is like a huge misstep for a
Right.
Marvel DC game. So like I said, there's characters. They're basically red. There's locations or sites which are green. They have different abilities, and then you have plot twists which are purple. Um, and the way they fix mana system is you can, and this is basically the first game that I know of where you can take a card from your hand and you can put it face down, and that's a resource point, right? And you build a resource row, and in your resource row you can put plot twists face down, you can put plot twists face up, you can put locations face down, you can put locations face up, you can even put characters won't do anything. You can turn plot twists face up, you can turn plot twists face down, and each time you're doing something they're triggering an ability. Maybe it says, this is an ongoing plot twist. While this plot twist is face up, your Brotherhood of Evil Mutants characters get +2 power or something, right? And then you have a battlefield. And so you're bringing characters, you're spending resource points. You get 1 resource point for each card you have face down. So basically 1 per turn. So turn 1, you'll have 1. Turn 2, you'll have 2. Turn 3, and you can play up to 3 resource points. And you're going to then build a team, right, of characters that are going to attack your opponent. You can directly attack your opponent's characters, or you can, if they don't have any characters, you can directly attack your opponent. Each person starts with 40 endurance, aka 40 life, and the idea is you get your opponent down to 0 endurance. You can go negative. You can both go negative. Once one person goes negative, at the end of the turn, whoever has the lowest endurance loses. So like if you both go to like -5 and then somebody goes to -7, you can win being at -5 because you have more endurance than your opponent. And then you're going to make a formation of characters. So you're going to have a front row and a back row. So characters that are, and this is where it starts getting like very complicated very quickly. So let's say you have 4 characters in play. You might put 2 characters in your front row and 2 characters in your back row. Characters have certain abilities. They can have flight or range. So, for example, Storm from the X-Men, she can fly, so she has flight. Whereas Cyclops from the X-Men, he can shoot lasers out of his eyes, so he has range, right? So flight can fly over. Your opponent's going to build a formation of characters. So they might have 2 characters up front and 2 characters in back. Flight can fly over your opponent's front row. Range can shoot over your front row. And then characters that are the same team. So like, let's say I had Storm and Cyclops. If you attack Storm, or if I'm attacking with Storm and you're able to do enough damage to her, like your power equals her defense and her power equals your defense or whatever, you would stun. So you flip those cards face down and you'll lose endurance equal to their cost. So that's how you really speed up the game. And then, but if I have, say, Cyclops behind her, I can tap Cyclops and he can essentially reinforce Storm so I don't lose the endurance. And then at the end of your turn, any characters that are stunned, you choose 1 character to keep, and all the other stunned characters get discarded. If the characters aren't stunned, they stay in play. If they were just tapped for reinforcing, they'll untap on your opponent's turn. So you're trying to build out a board of characters and attack your opponent's characters to cause damage. If you have more power than their toughness and your character is not stunned, you can cause breakthrough damage, which is like trample in Magic. And then, yeah, this is where it gets really complicated. So you can make your formation however you want. So you might put all your characters in the back row. You might put all characters in the front row. You might put these characters in the front row and support row to support each other, and this character is next to this one and they can reinforce this way, and this character can reinforce this way. And once you start getting like 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 characters out on the table, the decision tree branches on how to create a formation and how to attack your opponent's formation start approaching like the millions and millions of decisions that you have to make, which is impossible for humans to comprehend. So at a certain point in this game, you basically have to be like genius level intellect to even comprehend a board state, which is a deterrent for a lot of people on playing a game.
This is just an intro. So is this an easy game to pick up though? Like if you're just trying to play for fun, like is this easy to
yes, you can. Don't make your board states complicated. As long as you don't do that, this game is very straightforward. It's combat and Magic. I play my guy. He costs 6. He's power 12, defense value 12. I'm going to attack. You can team block him, and you have power 12, and all of our characters stun. And we lose life. And then we go to the next turn, and we do that again. So that's where I said it's deceptively easy. You can very readily play a game. You can build a deck. You can put your favorite characters. You can play an all X-Men deck. You can play a Daredevil and Spider-Man deck. You can play a Superman with Batman deck. You can battle each other. It's a lot of fun, but it's very difficult if you start making extended board states. So I would just stay away from doing that. But otherwise, this is basically a fixed version of Magic. They actually did it. It was really surprising. And it's funny because like stuff like World of Warcraft and the spoils that come after this game, they learned like 1 or 2 things that would improve upon this mechanic, but it's the fixed, basically perfect version of Magic. So if you like Magic the Gathering and you like superheroes, you should play Versus System. The community is also great. Versus System Collective over on Facebook, and go buy all your cards from Scott Church on Category 1 Games, because he has like basically the last store online that actually sells these. So, but Versus System's an awesome game. You should definitely play it.
I think that's a great way to end this, Andy. We're going to do a little more in-depth look at Versus System and maybe go over some like deck ideas, maybe some, maybe set by set might be interesting. I don't know. We can brainstorm how we want to tackle this, but this is just an introduction. I hope folks are intrigued by this game and, maybe think of picking up some or trying it out. Are there starter decks, by the way? Like, are there easy to pick up starter decks and the kind of?
Yeah, you can. There's a Hellboy starter deck which has the last version of the rules before the game ended up dying in 2009. So it had about a 5-year run. But you can do Hellboy BPRD versus whatever the bad guys in that are. Those are pretty cheap. You can usually find them online for like $15. But there's also like X-Men versus Magneto. There's Doc Ock versus Spider-Man. There's Joker versus Batman starter decks. So they're themed.
Sure.
They're not
very well together in like a very basic world. So okay. Yeah. Well, this is going to be the first of probably an entire series on Versus System. So
hopefully, this seems great.
Yeah, Andy's a huge fan. I'm intrigued. So I like new things. So thanks for the information. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff, guys. And stay tuned for some Versus System content.
Have a good one.
See ya.
Bye.